Hi, this is Russell Robinson, and you're here at the CEO Google Hangout at Jewish National Fund. I just returned from Israel yesterday, and with me is a very special guest with us, Becky Fisher. Becky is one of our top lay leaders, a member of our board of directors, is from Florida, and she's on the Google Hangout today because she just came back from Israel, leading what she has done for the past couple of years, the Arava Task Force. So, Becky, welcome to the Google Hangout.
Thank you, Russell.
And for our viewers, what is the Arava Task Force?
The Arava Task Force was put together 5 years ago when it was determined that there was a need in the central Arava for a medical clinic. Our mission started out as to dealing with issues that they're facing in the central Arava in education, in medicine, and dealing with senior issues. And we put together a team of about 35 lay leaders who would be available to respond to dealing with those issues. When we made our first trip to the Arava, we discovered that the problems there were far more severe than had been communicated to us, and put together a bigger task force that included fundraising and direct communication with the communities to address their issues. Over the last year, we've included the Eilot region, which is also the southern Arava.
So, Becky, 35 lay leaders. How are they involved? What do you do?
We have frequent communications. We've had anywhere from 10 to 15 members each year join us on the task force so that they can be exposed to the people that we deal with in Israel, see the issues for themselves, and help prioritize and come up with recommendations to the Jewish National Fund as to how to address those issues. Even though some of the members have not been to Israel, they stay in constant communication and are very eager to be helpful to those in Israel who are facing crises.
So you're involved in those decision processes with the people of Arava and JNF? What does that mean?
It's a real partnership. It started out in the very first meeting that they met, they had meet with us, probably 10 different individuals who covered different areas of the Central Arava community. And what they did in those 4 days was to just dump all of the problems that they were facing with no solution. They were really crying out for help. Russell came down and we took the list of all the problems and prioritized them, with, at that time, the medical clinic being our top priority. We approached the Minister of Agriculture to deal with landmine issues that they were facing, and we approached the Minister of the Negev and Galilee to help us with the medical clinic. So we not only work in partnership with them, but because JNF is the strong face of the American community in Israel, we were able to communicate with the ministers in a way that the mayors and the people in the community have not been able to get their attention. So it's a real partnership, not only with the people that live there, but with the government.
So, Becky, the Arava is between the Dead Sea and Eilot. How large of an area is it?
It makes up 22% of the Jewish land. It's
22%.
22%. With it between the central Arava, which is about an hour from top to bottom, and the southern Arava, which is another hour top to bottom, there's only 8,000 people living in the entire region.
And how did they get there? How did people decide to live there? I mean, it's a desert area. It's rocks.
It started out as real pioneers. They took Ben Gurion's dreams to make the desert and move to the desert. That's really what the pioneers did in the earlier days, and a lot of these folks were just that. In the 60s and 70s, settled in kibbutzim in the south and in the central Arava moshavim. They were predominantly farmers. The central Arava is responsible for 60% of the fresh produce that's exported from Israel and 10% of the fresh cut flowers. But because of the market conditions in Europe and in Russia, we're working with them to help take the emphasis off of agriculture and to develop new technologies and ways for them to earn a living, not in agriculture. They're real pioneers. And now one of the issues is that the second generation, their children, were leaving to go to Tel Aviv, to go to Ben Gurion University, to get an education, want to come back and be able to work in the Arava and live with their families and raise their children.
Now, Becky, you're a lawyer, a very good
I
lawyer,
am.
top lawyers, but you're a
Thank
lawyer.
you.
You're a volunteer, and you're giving me statistics information that would seem like a professional hired by the Arava. Does the rest of your task force know what you know? How do you know all that information?
Yes, the rest of my task force is predominantly those that have been on the mission know as much as I do. This is not something that's unique to me. It's something that we work on constantly. We already have our notes together from the trip that has gone out to the committee to just reiterate everything we saw, and it includes the statistics because the statistics are a very important part of the work that we do in the we count families, we came to the overall population in Israel. And I think you could talk to virtually any member of the mission group and get the same feedback.
That's wow. So, Becky, what are some of the priorities that you see for the next 2 years and 5 years for the Arava?
We're one task force for the Central and Southern, but there are problems in the Central and Southern that are distinctly different. So for the Central Arava, we've already identified that in addition to the medical center, which opened a year ago, they need a command and rescue center. The Arava road, the Road 90 that goes through the Arava to a lot, has approximately 5 million vehicles that pass over it every year, and it's one of the most treacherous roads that there are in Israel. So the command center has to be able to address those kinds of emergencies that come up because of the tourism in the area where people need to be rescued from mountainsides or out of flash floods that happen in the area. It's also on the Jordanian border. And now there are issues with the government. For example, last summer during the war, they relocated people from the population centers to the Central Arava to house them in an area where they would be safe. So the command center is also going to be available to the Israeli government to provide that kind of housing and support. So that's one of our top priorities. The other one is the program called ICAT. ICAT is an agricultural school that attracts students from 7 different countries, including Vietnam, Myanmar, Korea, South Sudan, it's just an example, Laos, of some of the cities that have sent students. In the 5 years we've been going there, they've grown from 250 to 1,200 students. The kids spend 11 months of the year in Israel. They're supported by their own governments to get an education in Israel. They take back with them agriculture and farming.
They're getting educated in Israel?
They're getting educated in Israel. They work on the moshavim. They learn high-tech agriculture. They take classroom courses on business administration so that they know how to run their own farms when they get back to their own countries. And then they spend 6 weeks out of the 11 months touring Israel. So they become real ambassadors for the country. And we're training them to be able to feed themselves and earn a living in their own countries. It's been highly successful. Their goal is to reach 4,000 students, including master's students in connection with Tel Aviv University. And so our next priority is to build them their first of 3 classrooms to accommodate the growth.
So how much are we talking about in real dollars need to be raised in a year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, we've estimated that to build the command center, it's going to cost approximately $4 million. It's going to be a building that is a mirror image of the medical center, but will house ambulance service, fire service, police service, rescue service, and any other services that need to be provided because of issues like war that happen in population centers. So that's $4 million. We have another $4 million that we requested from JNF to fund the first classroom and provide what needs to go inside the classroom for education. That project over the next 4 years could run upwards of $16 million if we're going to really grow it to 4,000 students, get 100 master's degree students into the program, and house them. But we need dormitory housing, which can also be used then for conference center housing. And the classroom space is going to be amazing.
But the rippling effect of that means that you're going to go to Southeast Asia and other countries and be able to have them be our ambassadors about Israel.
Correct. That's what makes it so attractive to JNF. It's not just the fact that we're educating these young people about how to take agriculture back to their communities, but that there is a ripple effect. They're lining up to be able to do this. And it sends a good message. When you interview the students, none of them can believe that out of Israel in the desert are coming peppers and strawberries and carrots and tomatoes that are the best in the country. And they're learning how to do that, and it's not something that they understood. From a political standpoint, they clearly go back with a much better idea about what life is like in Israel, what the Israeli people are like, and we hope will help polish our image in countries where, you know, there's a lot of anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish sentiment.
So Becky, if your 35 or 40 task force members are not caring about the Arava, if the hundreds of thousands of donors that you're getting in Jewish National Fund are not, why should you care about the Arava? Why the negative? Why not, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa? The most of the population is there. Why really should you be worried about 8,000, 6,000 people?
Well, it's precisely because of the population centers that we need to worry about the people and the communities in the periphery. The government doesn't pay a lot of attention to the periphery of Israel. When they come to campaigning, when they come to services, they worry about where the population numbers are that are going to elect them into their positions. And that means Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem. If we're not in there helping these communities, they're going to die out. Farmers are not going to be able to continue farming. They're not going to be able to stay there with aging parents and provide services, and their kids are not going to want to go back there because of the percentage of land mass that the Arava, for example, is to the rest of the country, and the low number of, statistically, people that live there. They're not going to get services. The Arava is not even on the national water grid. It's through desalination plants and drip irrigation that they've developed with the help of JNF that they're able to stay there. But the population centers can be a dangerous place in times of war. That's where the funding goes from the government. And that's why we need to help the communities in the periphery to make sure they can survive and thrive. And one of the goals of JNF through Blueprint Negev is reduction in the needs that my task force covers the biggest part of that population group.
Well, Becky, our tagline is "Your Voice in Israel," and I will tell you that for any of our viewers out there and for the people that are going to be listening to your message, I don't think there's a more powerful voice than what you just gave us today. The voice of caring about people from a far distance away from that population center. And I will tell you, I'm proud to have you as part of our JNF family and your voice to be giving us the real words of what's happening in the Arava. I'm in awe constantly about your commitment, the in-depth of your knowledge about the way that all of your task force cares so much and gets deep, deep, deep into the issues. And I think it speaks about who we are at Jewish National Fund and who you are as an individual and all of your task force members and the hundreds of thousands of donors that we have. So I want to thank you for being on Google Hangout with me today and sharing it. We'll have other members from the other task force on future Google Hangouts. And I look forward to seeing you all next month on the JNF Google Hangout with the CEO. Becky, again, thank you very much for giving your time, your commitment.
Russell, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.